Welcome back, everyone, to Anonymous Addiction Deprogramming Podcast. My name is Bobby C., and I'll be your host for today. I was away. I was away for about 5 months. I had a lot of stuff came about. It's like life on life's term. My mom passed away January 27th. My brother passed away March 22nd. So we had to go back east, and it wasn't pretty. Very sad. We're still grieving the losses, and we I didn't have to go to any meetings. Let's put it that way. There was so many other things. There's so many other things in the world to go to support myself, and I am the creator of my own destiny. So I realize that today. So I have inner strength, and it comes from within, and I believe that. Today they call him Boo Boo Garcia, but I'm going to call him Buddha because he has a channel, Buddha Garcia. Buddha's over there in Goodyear, Phoenix. I spent 14 years in Fountain Hills, Arizona, so I know. And I'm going to come out there. Believe it or not, I didn't tell him yet, but after the show, I'm going to talk to him. I'm going to come out, drive out there, and we're going to hook up. I'm going to do a podcast with him right there in Goodyear. So introduce yourself, Buddha, and tell us about how we hooked up, and tell us a little bit about your story. I know you came in 2009, 14 years ago. Let's talk. Let's talk from there. Your story, backstory before coming in. It's you could tell the audience where they could check that out on the podcast you did with Paige.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I listened to that, so that was very good. Tell him I said hi when you see him. There's Boo Boo. Tell us about the 14 years and the transition, which you discovered, uncovered, and recovered.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me on. I reached out to you because you know, I just recently stopped calling myself a member of AA because of the fact that I was started to get put down for questioning things, but I'll get into that later. But even when I was calling myself a member, I was looking into your I was listening to you, and I was like, man, I love Bobby C because e- even if I don't agree with everything you say, that's the beauty of being able to be open-minded, right? And learn from each other, and I don't have to debate or, be egotistical about and try to defend something, because, but I agree with a lot of stuff you say and I appreciate it. And I've learned from you and also like you clarified some stuff or made it seem like I'm not crazy, okay, other people are thinking just like me and it's okay to think outside the box, because you get, crucified for thinking if you get outside the box, and we'll get into that later. But yeah, you heard me on Pej's Corner as well. The link I sent you, and yeah, he's a good friend of mine, so he lets me be me, and I appreciate that because it's hard to find in the 12-step community because you get crucified if you start to think differently or you're gonna get loaded again. And I appreciate it. I'm sorry for hear about your loss. I know it's a part of life, but you said something profound that I don't have a mind and body that take me to a drink anymore, even when stress comes or pain or hurt, because I retrain my mind and body. The power is within me, and I don't need to go to AA meetings and I to feel okay or be safe, and I can't speak for everyone else, but I could speak for me. And yeah, I got sober in 2009, and I walked into the 12-step community AA, and I got some guidance. And I think it's important to let people know I'm not gonna try to crucify them, but I will speak up, and I will speak up, and I'll and because it's not cool to not be able to be, to thy own self be true, but who actually really lives that in the 12 steps, I'm not going to conform to a certain way of thinking or looking at it as Bill sees it. Because Bill didn't know everything. I think it's important for people to know that he didn't know everything, and he got a lot of stuff from other sources. And, he only had 3 years of sobriety at the time he wrote the big book. And I always tell people, wow, if I think about how I used to think at 3 years of sobriety and how I think now, totally different. Of course things are going to change, understanding and growth. But anyways, yeah, I walked into the 12 step rooms, went to a part of some big meetings in Los Angeles, got sober in San Pedro, California, went to meetings in Bellflower, meetings in LA, meetings in Rancho Palos Verdes. But and it was really structured meetings. And they told me there's 3 cups of coffee in the 12-step community, 12-step in AA, right? There's some weak shit, some mediocre stuff, and some strong cup. And we serve a strong cup of coffee. But what that did for me is it created a lot of um ego, we're better than you in the communities, and but I started doing everything they told me to do. I got all these commitments, and I actually had I know some people, and it'd be ignorant for me to think that everyone's supposed to have an awakening through these steps, but I actually did. But I had an awakening before I even came to a the minute I woke up, November 14th, 2009, I was in so much pain, and Carl Jung says there's no coming to consciousness without pain. And I'm not sure if that's true for everybody, but that's true for me because I think people could have a moment of clarity. They don't have to hit rock bottom, you know. But I had a moment of clarity and I experienced a brief moment of, I call it a glimpse of nirvana, which means to blow out. And that little candle of the egoic flame was blown out. And then I knew automatically I was going to change my life. I was no longer going to drink, party, and be the person I was, So I started doing everything he told me to do. I started getting commitments and all that stuff. And then in 6 years of sobriety, I'm doing all this stuff. Um, got all these sponsees, I'm poster boy in my area, speaking everywhere. I got in a dark place, and then the fellowship that you often hear people say they love me back to life. The people that I thought loved me back to life are the ones that are judging me, putting me down, talking behind my back, and that was hurtful for me, a little bit. And I got into a dark place, and but I had another awakening during that time, and I started to question everything. I started to look at things differently in a more broader level, and started looking into science and what is modern science saying about addiction and so on. And yeah, and little by little, I stopped being asked to speak because I'm not sticking to the lingo. I'm not parroting everything that they're saying, or I'm challenging what Bill says. For an example, they say self-knowledge avails you nothing. And I say that's a bunch of BS because self-knowledge got me sober. And I'm not talking about the guys that they use in the book because those guys didn't have self-knowledge. They didn't even have the big book written yet, and they're using these guys as examples. But self-knowledge for me is just developing that awareness, understanding that insight, and then looking at my childhood and seeing how certain things affected my brain development and wrong perception. When I started to see that stuff, that's self-knowledge because I have a deeper understanding. And then when I could see that and remove a lot of those belief systems and labels, then I could tap into that power within me.
Let me just jump in there because we have the time may be a little different as far as when we started to speak out and stuff like that. But I can relate to it 100%. I can relate to that feeling. I don't know if you can relate to feeling like I wasn't true to myself. I wasn't being true to myself. I I was like in cognitive dissonance back and forth, and I was actually ashamed and kind of scared to speak out even more than what I felt I should have,
Mm.
because I didn't want to hurt they call them newcomers, but I don't like to call them newcomers, new people that came into the meeting. I didn't want to, stray them in a different way. I didn't want to hurt anybody. If they were really into the program, I didn't want to sway them away, but I spoke a different language, and I started to feel, that's when I started to feel old timers or people kind of ostracizing me, what I said. They would always come back. Whatever I said, they would come back and quote some more and parrot some more of the big book or the steps or any other slogan in the program. But I kept on doing it, little by little, I kept on doing it. And I think we kind of have the same type of story with that, and I don't bash members. There's bad people in AA. There's no question about it. There's 13 stepping going on, and there's some bad people in Alcoholics Anonymous, just as there's bad people everywhere else in any other society, community, or organization. I don't like the bad mouth the majority of Alcoholics Anonymous because the majority was actually silent. They were the silent ones. It was the minority that controlled the group. just a few. It was the minority that controlled the agenda and the narrative of Alcoholics Anonymous and all the different meetings. So I just want to shout out to, I still have a few friends in Alcoholics Anonymous, and that's their choice. I still talk to them. When we talk, we don't talk AA. We just talk about life. I just wanted to touch base with that. Let's tag team back and forth, continue sharing, and we'll kind of see where we can compare, because I believe too that we have a right uh, to disagree. Okay, we can agree to disagree. We don't have to debate. We don't have to argue. We could show people what we have in common, and there are some things maybe right today that we don't agree upon, but we're not going to talk about those things. We're going to talk about things that we do agree upon. So back to you, Boo Boo.
I started to experience the same stuff as you have, and I would have like a whole meeting. Basically, if I was to say something, they would take their turn on sharing against me, and it's like, wow, I can't, just because I don't believe in the groupthink anymore in a lot of things, you don't have to bash me or talk directly at me. And so I started to feel distanced. And then they always blame you. Like if it's you, you're the problem. Look at yourself. But what happens when a collective doesn't look at themselves at a collective level? They say in AA, if you don't apply the steps, you're an untreated alcoholic, right? Well, what happens when a group doesn't look at their behavior as a collective? You know, and I think AA needs to start looking at themselves and how they talk to people, their lingo, their approach, their old methods, because a lot of the science is outdated. There's no such thing as an allergy of the body. So I'm not going to tell someone they have that unless I tell them it's a metaphor, to use it as, a metaphor, but it's not scientifically proven that there's an allergy of the body. That actually got debunked in 1944.
How about let's talk, let's talk a little bit about, I think you mentioned it when we were talking about religious trauma, kind of, because it's like Alcoholics Anonymous says it's not a religion. This is a spiritual program, you know. But look, I grew up Catholic. I grew up a Catholic, and I did all the rituals, so I know the difference between religion and just spirituality today. I can't be lied to, and I can feel it. It resonates, just as we were talking off air, that how things resonate when we hear things that click and validate and resonate with their body and soul and spirit. You know, it's like truth that's coming through us, and we could feel it. Talk a little bit about, you mentioned that religious trauma.
Yeah, I just recently did a recording with a lady who experienced religious trauma, and she's a counselor for religious trauma and so on. She speaks a lot about it. But I was asking her certain things about religious trauma, and a lot of stuff was going off the checklist or borderline. Um, and you know, it's hurtful. It's hurtful when someone you can't be you in a fellowship. That's hurtful. Trauma comes from the Greek word which means wound. I think that's something that AA needs to start looking at, is what science is saying about trauma and addiction. Because one thing, and I'm not trying to stir off, but I want to clarify what I'm saying. When you study, modern research is saying that not everyone that has trauma is an addict, but everyone that is an addict has some form of trauma, even with the co-founders. But AA is not looking at that. That's a bad word. So being able to bring in new information and being chopped down is hurtful. That could be traumatizing. Not being able to, the black and white thinking, that could be some hurtful. A lot of stuff that they do, and AA is a religion, whether they want to say that or not. It basically, like in Christianity, for an example, which is one of the world religions, they have canon gospels and non-canon gospels you know and if you go to a church and you go to a gift store, they'll say this ain't on the buy list. This ain't and I've had that experience in Torrance, California, at a big church when I was new to sobriety, and starting to seek outside the box. And AA has AA approved literature and non-AA approved literature, and if you use non-AA approved literature, you're going to get bashed for it in a meeting. So, and they have the symbol, they have the Trinity. They have a set of beliefs. There's different definitions with religion, but the modern one is a set of beliefs and rituals, slogans, formats, the same prayers. all that stuff. So yeah, and if you try to switch that stuff around, you start to get questioned. And I try to start new formats and new meetings and try to help expand it, and you just get constantly put down for it. So, and I will bring this. In Greek, the word heretic means to have your own decision, make your own choice. And orthodox in Greek means to think straight, usually told by an authority. So I was told to leave AA, get get out of here. I got been cussed out by members, et cetera, or just they close the door on you.
Yeah,
So
ostracized, like you mentioned.
mhm.
Let's get back to the religion part of it a little bit. 12, 12, and 12. I always say in my podcast, look, you have the 12 steps which control the group, 12 traditions which 12 steps control the members, 12 traditions control the groups, and 12 concepts control the world organization. So it's 12, 12, and 12. And if you look up the 12s, it comes from all types of religion. Father Dowling, Father
Father Dowling,
Dowling.
Ed Dowling, yeah,
Uh, he was Bill's sponsor for 20 something years, 25 years. He was Jesuit priest, Jesuit priest. Jesuits are converters. They convert, they go around the world converting people to Catholicism. And so a lot of Bill's influence was influenced by Father Dowling, who was a Jesuit priest. We could talk a little bit about even Marty Mann, or even you were mentioning, because today, me, I don't believe in labels. I don't use the word alcoholism, because alcoholism was, it was back in the 1800s when it started, the alcoholism, the word. And so a lot of people just jumped on that. And Marty Mann was one of the big ones that jumped on it. And she promoted it and wrote some books about it. And she started we could get into that, I do a whole podcast on that, how she really pushed into society the alcoholism, which ism just means a movement. Alcohol movement. It's like a prohibition movement. Alcoholism is just a movement. I don't like to use the word addict, alcoholic. I used to, look, I was a problematic drinker. I had a habit. I was preoccupied most of the time. I did have obsessions with it. Okay. And people suffer with this type of stuff all day long. Everybody in the world has habits. Everybody has obsessions, and everybody's addicted to something. Let's face it, after all, sugar is the biggest addiction in the world. Okay. So for me not to admit that I am addicted to things, today I choose, this is my choice, and I think it's Buddhist too, that I choose to live an alcohol and drug-free lifestyle. That's my choice. But I don't have to go around bragging about, oh, I don't drink. I got this many years. I don't have to tell all people that, because you know what? It's not a thing in my life. It's like, would I go around bragging that I don't do porn, I don't look at porn, or I don't cheat on my wife, or I don't eat peanuts. Maybe I never ate peanuts, or maybe I don't like sushi. Do I go around bragging about something that I don't do? No. And I don't really think today it's a for me, it's not a big deal. I just choose not to do it. It's just like other choices. People have choices, and some people do things and don't do things. What do you think about that, Buddha?
yeah. You get your choice. The prefrontal part of the brain starts to work correctly again. And that's one thing. I don't try to throw the God, thing down people's throat if they don't want to believe in God. If they want to believe in God, that's awesome. If they don't, they don't. But we know about neuroplasticity and the labeling. That's not me. Like you said, you talked about the labels, and I stopped saying that a long time ago. I'm an alcoholic because why am I going to call myself that if I don't drink? And that's like programming or reminding yourself of the false self that I'm not. I'm not an alcoholic. Why am I going to identify? It's like saying I am the big ego. I am an idiot. I am a sinner. Why am I going to say that to myself? That's dangerous. And then people wonder why they get loaded again because they say that from as the years go by for 25 years, they say that nonstop and they believe that, and that has the power to take your ass out. So yeah, I like how you said the labels, you know. I don't hold on to those labels, and when things get bad, I don't have a mind and body that take me to a drink anymore. The book promises freedom, but they forget that, you know, because they believe they have a daily reprieve, and that's dangerous because the word reprieve means delay from impending punishment. I don't live on survival mode sobriety today, and I have new coping skills, and thank you know that I learned in the 12-step movement. So I'm grateful for that. But I don't depend on anybody to keep me sober today. I know how to stay sober. I know how I don't have to knock on wood, and I know when things go bad, I have I tools to use today, and I know how to just pause, you know, and just get calm again, and so I can think better, you know. So
Yeah, let me
yeah, I
ask
love how
you.
you said that.
Let me ask you a
Mm.
question. Do you ever hear of smart recovery?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Look, I was in that program for so many years. I went to a lot of meetings. One time I had three different home groups, all, one in California, one in Jersey, one in Florida. No one came up to me and said, "Hey, Bobby, why don't you check out a smart recovery meeting? It's pretty cool. It's different, Or, hey, Bobby, why don't you check out the Recovery Dharma? Recovery Dharma is
Mm.
pretty cool. It's Buddhist principles, but it's got a lot of philosophy in there, and it teaches you a lot of stuff. It's like, you know, thinking outside that box, going outside. Until I went outside, and I went outside early on. I got sober in 1984, so it was 40 years ago. So when I got sober, we didn't have the internet. You know, I
Mhm.
was labeled an alcoholic by society, and who helped create that society was Marty Mann, people like Marty and Dr. Jurenick and the Brinkleys and Christopher Brinkley, all kinds of different people just kept on perpetrating this I call it a lie of this disease. Even back in the big book, it's kind of weird because, like you said, I think the big book wasn't even written. They didn't even touch base with maybe 4 years. I don't know if it was three and a half, four, close to four, when the book started to get published. And Hank got hijacked. We realized that. Hank got
Mhm.
hijacked, and they
Co-founder.
Rockefeller bought back all the shares and made sure he controlled all that stuff. But we could talk about Rockefeller in another podcast. But just in this in the and the step book didn't even come out for, I think, 17 years later. Okay, traditions were like didn't write the traditions for you. And who wrote that traditions? I don't believe it had nothing to do with Bob or Bill. I think it was just a big control mechanism, because the concepts, if you really get into it, they say it's not organized. It's a well organized, designed, multi-level marketing machine. And like Bill, I think Bill had. Let's see, what did Bill have? Bill had a. I think he had a couple days. No, he had actually. Dr. Bob only had, I think, 22 days sober when they went to. I think it was Bill D. Okay, and they go into Bill D, and Bill D's stories in here. He's the third member. All right, Bill D's story. Yeah, during the first 6 months, June 26th of 1935, they sat with Bill D. Right, and I mean, yeah, Bill D. And this is what they told him. It's right here in the book. I mean, if you really dissect this thing and go deep, even go outside of the program, you have to go outside of the program where the other control mechanisms are, and bring them back in to connect all the dots and follow the money. But this is what they told Bill D. You are an alcoholic. As far as I know, for the first time I had ever paid any attention, I figured I was just a drunk. No, you have a disease, and it doesn't make any. I got 10 minutes left on this here, so we're gonna we get 10 minutes is last long. But they told Bill D, you have a disease, and it says right here, they explained that a man from New York had a cure for alcoholism. They had the cure for alcoholism. Not only called it a disease, not only called it alcoholism, because they're just copying words from years and years and years ahead of time with this word disease. And they had a cure, you know, and they wanted to pass this cure on. And Marty, back in Marty's story, because Marty's story is here for the one of the women. and she wasn't the first woman. I think I forget her name, but we could look it up. I think it was Ruth. Really, was the first one, but Marty. I think Marty was the first woman. She was the first gay in Alcoholics
Yeah.
Anonymous. You know, she was the she. Bill sponsored her. Okay, Bill was her sponsor for years, and Marty said, "I was suffering from an acute disease that had a name and symptoms like diabetes." She's comparing it to diabetes, like cancer, like TB. That's just what she says. And the disease was respectable, because Marty was the one that pushed it out to society. She created all the teachings for all the nurses and psychiatrists, and it all came from Marty and pushing the alcoholism and the disease concepts. What do you got to say about that, Boo?
No, you're right. She basically bullied people. She was a powerful woman. And especially in her time, Jelenic was the guy that was on her side from Yale University, who she basically bullied, and eventually they stopped working with her because the other professors would call his research the Jelenic doodle,
Yeah.
making fun of his research because he never had full evidence of that it was a disease, and so yeah, she created this disease concept, and we all know why, because you get money out of it, and we know what happens when you get money out of it. Money becomes the primary purpose versus helping someone, generally helping someone that may need help. So
Yeah, we have 7 minutes. We got time. Yeah, we could go into. I think we might have to do a part two, uh, and discuss a lot of other things, going a little more in depth of a bunch of stuff. But
can I say something now?
yes, yes.
I try to get people to look at Gabor Mate. He doesn't call it a disease, and I used to say he's like our Silkworth of today, but that'd be an understatement. But Gabor Mate, he says a disease is misleading because it ignores what's really going on with the individual that needs to cope or needs to get relief from alcohol or drugs. So I try to point to a new awareness, a new understanding of what they call this thing, or what science is saying, but they're closed-minded on it, and a lot of people say, there's no opinions, and or opinions are like a-holes in AA, right? Everyone has one, like you can't have an opinion. And I always tell people, well, don't forget we start off with the doctor's opinion.
You know what? That's so true. And they always would slam you with that's an opinion, and everything is an opinion in the program. And without opinions, where we would be? Where would we be? I was
Exactly.
going to look it up, the definition of opinion, and it's crazy. That's the mechanism that I highlight in all the steps to and traditions to control. It's a mechanism of control. You know, uh, all the
Well,
all the
that's it.
traditions. Go ahead.
Going back to that religious trauma, that's what the lady says. One of the things is, one of the red flags is you can't think for yourself. You're told what to think, you're told what to believe. And we're supposed to have our own conception of God in the 12 step community, but we fall back into bills as you read the book over and over.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I don't
Uh,
know.
how about talking? Give a little shout out to your buddy over there. Is he in Phoenix?
Who?
Pej.
Pej?
Yeah.
No, he's in Orange County. He's in
Oh, he's in
Laguna.
Orange County. Yeah, maybe I'll
Yeah.
try to hook up with him. But give him a little shout out. Little,
Yeah, well,
that's the Pej, the addiction interventionist.
yeah.
He's
In his
on.
podcast.
Yeah, he's on.
He's
He's
on,
on YouTube.
yeah,
He's got a
Peggy's Corner,
Pej,
Recovery Corner.
Pej's
Yeah.
Recovery Corner, but I had to look it up with Pej, the addiction interventionist, and it came up on YouTube. But yeah, Pej's Corner. But let's see, what else can we close with? We got four. We got 5 minutes left. We got plenty of time. What comes to mind?
Ah,
Did you? Let me ask you something. Did you ever go to in a rehab?
no, I never have. That's
Either did I.
Yeah, I never went to rehab. I walked right into the 12 steps movement, and I got sober. I don't think that's everyone's story, and I don't think it has to be everybody's story. And I don't know. I didn't find that at all. I walked in, and I started doing things, and it changed my life. But well, the Chinese mystic Lao Tzu says to learn something every day is knowledge. to learn to let go of something every day is wisdom. And that's what we got to continue to do. Even in the program, I learned how to let go of all the stuff I was taught. A lot of the stuff that's not healthy for me, like the negative lingo that goes around. One of the dumbest things I've ever heard was AA is like the mafia. If you leave, you die, because that's harmful. So
That's yeah, that's there's only three ways out, and it's what jails, institutions, or death. It's I believe it was control mechanism. The whole thing is the steps and traditions and the concepts are control mechanism through fear, shame, guilt, and it has to do with control. And it kept me in for many years. I was scared. But the weird part about it is in the beginning, Bill and Bob didn't even have a sponsor in the beginning. They didn't even have books. They didn't even have steps. They stayed sober on their own, and I believe about 1940 was hijacked by Rockefeller, took it all over and created the whole dynamic of this multi-level, very, very complex organization throughout the world. There's so many meetings. I just posted some statistics on how many meetings, how many groups worldwide, and how many members. But they say 2 million members, which isn't really a lot. Okay, 2 million is really
no.
not a lot. And just to check out some alternative methods, I would say, and if I always say, you create your own program, because that's what we're doing. That's what I did even in AA. I was creating my own program. And I was experimenting. My life is just a big experiment. It's like a
Mm,
take and give. I didn't go to meetings and I still stay sober. I didn't get a sponsor in the beginning. I stayed sober. I didn't go to step meetings. I stayed sober. Then I did eventually, and still stayed sober. But I tried it. I gave it like a trial and error of different thing throughout the program. And I found out that it was me. It all came from me. I found out that every organization, every group, every recovery place, no matter where you go, we give them credit, but it's not them, it's us. We are the ones that created it. It had to come from us. We are the ones that had to say yes and do it. We had to decide. That's why they knew. See, because Bill took a lot of this stuff, Rockefeller knew it, but they took a lot of this stuff from motivational speakers, and they understood that a desire, you had to have a desire. And a desire is the same desire that you wanted to drink. You used it, the same desire that you wanted to stay sober. It's the same desire. And it means wanting. I want this. So it's a wanting and a desire that always comes first, and they knew it. What do you say, Boo Boo?
oh yeah, you're right. It's you can't take credit for your sobriety in the 12-step community, right? It's all God. You can't. But if you get loaded again, that's your fault. You can take credit, and that's
Exactly.
wrong. That's wrong. So
Exactly. Yeah, it's
yeah.
wrong. It's wrong. Hey, to all the people in Alcoholics Anonymous, still listen up. Maybe you'll change, maybe you won't, but we're just passing some inspiration, and we're just trying to inspire somebody to think outside the box. We're not telling you what to do. You know, if you don't want to listen to us, don't listen to us. But subscribe if you do want to. Please subscribe, and we'll be around, and we'll be doing another podcast. I appreciate it. How about you say goodbye, Boha?
Yeah,
Bobo.
thank you guys, and goodbye. Thank you for having me on, Bobby. Thank you.
Let me see where I stop recording at right here. See you later. Bye bye.